Hey guys, welcome back to another podcast. We have a special guest in the house, which we will get to. But first, I want to kind of go around the table here and I want to talk to our other coaches online here and see what their wins and some lessons for the week were. So I'll let Sonia, I'll let you kick it off.
So wins. I got approached by Status Magazine, so that was really big. I'm going to be doing a column for them, and they are out of Canada. They are a fitness magazine, and they're pretty big. Mayor says I don't live in Canada, but I think they're pretty big up there. So it's cool. It's really dope. And actually, the editor-in-chief called me and he's like, "Hey, can I help you for a little bit?" And we got on the phone call. They had emailed me. And they just want me to write like a small column. And obviously like, it'll just be like kind of subjective, like from my viewpoint on different things, because they don't have anyone talking about more of like the holistic hormones approach to stuff. So it's cool. It's the first time I've had like an official writing gig like that. So I'm super proud of that. Lessons I have. So this really weird thing was happening where like, one of my boobs, I was like, I love this boob is moving in a direction I love. It was just like super perky. And my other boob, basically like how I can describe it is one boob was like a porn star boob and the other boob was like an average boob. And turns out I'm encapsulated and that's why it was getting harder and higher. But I was like,
I know, so it was literally legit was moving.
It legit is moving. And
I thought you meant like, you know, you have a day where they're just like, things are sitting right, you're feeling sassy, but no, like it was like migrating.
Where it's slowly been getting harder and higher, you know, and I'm like,
wait, is that the porn star one or not?
Yeah, the porn star one. Like when I laid down, I was like, this titty feels like, and this other titty feels like, wow, you know what I mean? I was like, what is going on? So I'm completely encapsulated, like a level 3 or whatever on that side. So I have to go in and get bigger ones. No, I'm just kidding. I have to go in and get them taken out specifically that one taken out. And I guess they take out the whole like scar.
You want that. No.
Yeah.
You want that. Yes, you want that.
Yes, I for sure want that. So I'll be getting a new one and I'll probably go bigger. And like, it's just like, it's a fucking bitch, dude. Like they're expensive. And with COVID, everything is more expensive. So $10,000 titties are now $14,000. It's just like, it's a fucking hassle. And also like, it's kind of like that, you know, it's not the doctor's fault that it happened. I think like that's what he says. It's kind of like, you know, one in so many people this happens to, but it's just kind of like trying to figure out like, do I want to stay with it? It's kind of a hassle. It's like,
are you staying with the same doctor that did your first one?
I don't think so. I have like multiple people that have been like, you should do this, you should do that. So I have a couple consultations to kind of see what I want to do. And like, if I want to go under or over the muscle, I think like, to be honest, I don't think it's the surgeon's fault. I went and hit bench like 6 weeks after. I was like, let's get in and like get going again. And I competed in 2019. So who knows, like if it was a me thing or them thing or a him thing, but definitely a lesson for sure. Yeah. I won't be treating my new titties. I won't be hitting the bench with them at all.
Yeah. So are you going to get that done soon? Cause like, that can turn pretty serious.
I know. And so what actually happened is, this is like a boob podcast, but
Alex, we're coming. We're getting it. This could be a moment.
One day, like my serratus anterior. So like that little rib cage muscle for those of you who don't know. And I was like, it just feels uncomfortable. And then that pull down started hurting. And it like, after I do back, I'm just like, my boob just feels like different and weird. And so in the past year, it's gone from nothing to a level 3, which there's 4 levels. So I was like, oh, 3 doesn't seem bad. She's like, there's only 4 levels. So I'm a very glass half full person. I was like, 3 seems like a low number, but no, it's pretty serious. So I'm probably going to do it in like November, December. It's just kind of planning around, you know, travel. So
are you over or under right now?
I'm under the muscle.
Are you? I'm over.
And I think I'm going to go over. Not that anyone is wondering, but I already have large breasts. If you follow me on Instagram, like, you know this, but my implants are only 300, which is really small. I mean, it's not really small.
You could go up. Come to Florida. They're cheaper here.
Florida.
Yeah, I know.
The place to be right now. Like, honestly.
I know, but traveling to Florida.
Yeah.
And you could rehab in my guest bedroom, but.
Yeah. If you know a doctor, send me their info.
Oh, shit. Just be prepared. DMs to be blown up. We need to release this podcast like ASAP.
Yeah. Yeah. titties.
Well, this will be a whole new episode. Is like
Yeah.
when you're
Actually, that's
when
what this
you're
whole
curious.
episode is now about. No.
Yeah. Okay.
What about you guys? Wins and lessons. Wins and lessons.
That's
Sarah?
Sarah, you go.
God, I don't know how I'm gonna top that.
I know. I'm like,
I mean, like I have been considering it myself, but that's not a win or a lesson.
We should do a boob one.
We
totally.
should. That's
Yeah.
a future episode.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess a win. So I just got back from Pittsburgh and, you know, at North American. So that was cool to like see everyone. Signed up 3 new clients this week. So like just, I feel like things are starting to pick up again. Like I feel like August was kind of slower. So now kind of like getting in the groove of things again. So that always feels good. Trying to
You
think.
mean as far as like coaching and intakes and stuff like that?
Yeah, like I feel like
Sure. Yeah. Dips down.
yeah, it dips down a little bit, or I got a lot of you know, like going on vacation. I'm like, I don't want to start either if you're going on vacation, you know, like let's just wait till like you have your computer, like we know there's nothing else going on, nothing else to interfere. So that's all good. And then trying to think a lesson. I guess like business lessons too is like if you don't jive with someone on the phone, like just say no, you know, just it's okay, like to not be for everyone.
Yeah, it's an interview. It's an interview both ways. I'm learning that for sure. Yeah.
You save headaches later on. So
for both of you, like it's okay to not jive. I think that's something that, yeah, for sure. Okay, so for myself, oh my God, like Sonia, like that was just like epic. Like I'm just like, well, let's just go on that. I think lessons for me is definitely, for me, it's actually time management. My time management, I did a time audit. I don't know if you guys have ever done that. That is very humbling. That sucks donkey balls. So you set a timer for every like 30 minutes. And when it goes off, you have to write down what you're doing. And so ideally, like you're supposed to be doing something like what you have blocked out to do. And so if you set that timer, it is very easy, like especially working online. I know I've shared on Instagram, I am the queen of maxing out the tabs on that you can possibly have open. And with that, you also see notifications. And so you end up being a little bit of a squirrel and kind of ping-ponging back and forth. So that was a big lesson for me. And then wins, I think business also, I think it's my trying to be more efficient and trying to just be better in all areas. And I think this podcast, and we got on a call earlier today, and I'm honestly just reeling in that. So I can't even think about my week and how we have things planned like straight through, like after, like past Thanksgiving, US Thanksgiving, like it's just so epic. So with that, I'm going to hand it over to our guest, which is Alex Tulinka, and he is a coach at Scooby Prep. So you can also look on Instagram. We'll let him do his handle here at the end. But we brought Alex on because he is an athlete who has gone and done through a transition. And he has, number one, we were talking before we even opened the podcast, quite an awesome story and just life overall. And Alex, first, I want to hear about your wins and your lessons for the week. And then I want to start getting into about your transition and your story of who is Alex.
Okay, awesome. Thank you guys for having me. So it's 1 win and 1 loss. Is that the theme?
Or, I mean, you can roll with it, but yes, typically 1.
I don't know. Like, I agree. That was kind of like epic, the first one. Win, I guess I'll go along with that. I got 3 more clients through Scooby Prep. That was cool. I did consultations with all of them. They were all awesome. I do get a lot of trans clients because they do feel comfortable with me, because there are certain topics and issues that if they feel it's like just a little uncomfortable for them to like bring up to someone that's cis. So like they feel more comfortable with me. So I do get a lot of clients like that through that niche. And then a loss, I guess today, like I literally traffic just like drained my energy.
Sucked your soul out.
Yeah.
Like in total, I think I drove 6 hours today. Like, yeah. And it's just silly because it's like a straight highway, just drive. Like why are we stopping? There's no stop signs or lights, just drive. Like, it's just rain. Like, it's just ridiculous. But
I
it was,
know.
yeah,
I
I
feel
mean,
you. Winters here are the same. It's just like you're like, it should take me 20 minutes. Why is it taking me 3 hours?
yeah,
It's
exactly.
in Seattle, traffic's just like always notorious. And then like the rainy season, which is like all of our season, right? It's fucking insane. And you would think that we're adaptive to it, but we're not. No, we're
Yeah.
Right? Same. Same.
Yeah, the issue though is like New York and especially like Long Island, a lot of people commute to the city because like obviously that's where people go to work. And our highways are like 3 lanes only, which is
Oh
like
my
our
God.
infrastructure is ridiculous for the amount of people that like
Yeah.
live on Long Island to drive towards the city. That's why like New York's like notorious for like probably the worst traffic period. The
Yeah.
only place I've been to that had worse traffic was LA.
I was
LA
gonna say LA.
Yes.
LA literally has like 6 lanes and it's still backed up. I'm like,
It's
where?
At
Where?
all hours. Like there
Yes.
is no reprieve.
No, it's very bad. But other than LA, I definitely think New York, Long Island is like the worst traffic in the United States. So
yeah.
So speaking of, LA, you are in New York now, but you were kind of telling us you weren't born in New York. You're not from originally New York. Like when did you come, although I don't want to share obviously where you were born, but I want you to kind of tell us about that for sure. Cause you were talking about it earlier and I was like, no, we have to hit record now.
Yeah, like bring us through like your like childhood. Like, okay, born a girl. And
Right.
where were you born? Like tell us about what your life was growing up. When did you know that you
Yeah.
wanted to transition?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Okay. So pretty much I was born in Transylvania, Romania. I was born in the countryside. I was not even born in a hospital. I was born a full countryside, dirt roads, you name it. Like I literally ate off a farm. Very different world and country. And like looking back on it, I always like talk to my parents about it, like how different my life would be if they never decided to move to the States. So I'm very glad that they did. So pretty much my parents, I am an only child to my parents. Before moving to the States, my mom was a homicide prosecutor and my dad was a dentist. Now now they own a photography company, and it does very well actually. So total switch of gears, but they do have like medical and like legal backgrounds to them, and they're both very educated, obviously, and I love them. So pretty much they actually left without me first. So I lived with my grandparents because citizenship was a little difficult at the time. So they left when I was about 1 years old, and that was really hard for them because they were nervous, like I'd forget who they are. I'd, think that my grandparents or my parents or something, but that wasn't really the case. They were gone for about a year just so they could like establish themselves. They didn't want to bring me like right away with them because like they just didn't want me to like live uncomfortably pretty much.
Right.
Like I was comfortable being in Romania. I was kind of used to it. It was normal for me. I had friends, whatever, like my grandparents. So they didn't want to mess with that at such a young age. So they kind of just left without me. When they moved here first, they lived in Queens. They, in like a really like crappy area just to like get by, like start up like, like a living here. Like just like the very typical like immigrant American dream kind of thing, like work ethic, stuff like that. And honestly, that did shape me a lot.
Yeah.
All my life, like I always watched my parents and like watched how hard they worked, and it was kind of drilled into my brain without like they never really said it, but like just subconsciously I really think watching my parents work so hard kind of motivated me to do the same. And I really appreciate like what my parents have done for me. So like when I think about it, it's just like it would be a waste of all their energy and time if I didn't like take advantage of everything that I was given in my life because they worked so hard for me. So pretty much they came back for me when I was about 2. And then I moved to the States. So I was very young.
Yeah.
I didn't live in like this. I did not live in India for that long. I could barely speak when I came here. And I literally went to preschool here. So I would say I'm definitely like American. Like I wouldn't.
Yeah.
Yeah, like my parents, on the other hand, they grew up there. My mom did learn. Both my parents knew fluent English, so that wasn't ever really an issue. But that's where I was born, and that's when I came. And then when I moved here, I always lived in New York all my life. I've always been a New Yorker. And yeah, so for me, I was always very boyish. Like even like like when I was in Romania, I would like go with my grandpa, and like I was really young, but like I always just like looked up to my grandpa. Like I'd go with him. Like I'd always be obsessed with like his hunting guns. And like they didn't hunt for fun. Like we literally hunted and ate the food. Like it was that level of like countryside, totally different. But I was always like, like if we had the construction workers, my parents would tell me at the house all the time, not construction workers, but like builders, because my grandpa owned like a metal scrap factory. So we would take the workers a lot and bring them to the house to just like repair some stuff here and there. And I'd be like a year old trying to like help them like pick up like bricks and like all this stuff. And like my grandparents were just like kind of like scratching their heads, like, what is this kid doing? I remember like all my life, like I was just revolted by like dresses, like I was very boyish all my life. Like if my parents ever tried to put me in a skirt, like I ripped it off. I used to do this thing where like if they put jeans on me, if like I'd have to do like a full squat in it. And if I didn't squat
Same.
and it wasn't comfortable, it was a no-go. I would not wear
Same.
I would wear joggers, like whatever. And when I was very young, I was very outgoing. Like even though I was an immigrant, obviously I learned English here. I had friends. And I feel like when you're so young, no one really thinks of like girl, boy. Everyone's just a kid.
Yeah.
You don't like like when you look at your peers, you all just like you just kind of look at them like your friends. You're not old enough to understand gender yet, really, and like the implications that come with it, because you're not even sexually developed. So it's just like you're all just kids at that age. And all my friends were boys growing up. I would like play sports. I was like the stereotypical case. And I think for me, my parent, like I feel like there are a lot of girls that are very boyish at a young age. So at that age, when I was like 5, 6, they didn't really think about it much. They were just like, oh, like Alex was just like really boyish, no big deal. And then I would say kind of like the age when you start developing a little bit, so around 8 years old, 9 years old, is when and when you kind of almost like in school they start separating you.
Yeah.
Boys go here, girls go here. Like kind of that age when they started doing that stuff is when I started like getting like changing a lot. And like I went from very extroverted, friendly to very introverted and like to myself, because I couldn't explain why. I was very young, but just the fact that people saw me as a female made me very uncomfortable. And it was one of those things that no one ever told me to feel that way. It was just inherent. It was just something that came naturally to me because I never saw myself as a female. So like when people start, like I genuinely, like when people started like, kind of being like, hey, you're a girl, that, right? Like I was like, what? Like I never really thought about it, honestly, like that. And then, yeah.
Can I ask you a question? Do you feel like you found yourself like like at that point where you more like, so I have a 6-year-old daughter, and like she'll walk into a wall looking at a little boy. Like it's like, dude, he's 12, like stop, you know what I mean? But do you feel like you had that like on either end, or were you just kind of like not even like in a sexual awareness of any sort during that time?
Right. So like, and that was another thing that was very confusing for me at that age, because I knew I liked girls. So I wasn't sure if it was just like me being into girls and like just being more masculine. And like that really messed with me because again, like it was very hard for me to differentiate between like my sexual preferences and my gender identity. And and that's why I became very reserved into myself, because I really didn't know how to handle it. And all I knew is I felt really uncomfortable with people looking at me as a girl, especially girls. Like the fact that girls looked at me as a girl, like that really freaked me out. So I like only associated with guys at that point. I like refused to talk to girls because it was just like really uncomfortable for me. And then my parents kind of started noticing because like, again, I was really extroverted. I didn't like involve myself in anything and everything in school. And then I went to like complete opposite. Like I just stayed home, played video games, whatever. Like I went from being very active not active at all.
Wow.
Like a very dramatic shift. And my parents just kind of assumed they kind of just assumed I was like a lesbian, and like I was just like really upset or sad over it because again, we're born in Romania. Like it's a totally different world there. Like my parents have never heard of the term transgender, and up to that point, neither did I. And honestly, it kind of stayed like that for a couple of years. I would say like 8 to 11, that was just kind of like my constant state. Again, my parents are photographers, but they own a photography company. And I think there's like 2 photos of me from the age of like 8 to 11. Like I'm not even exaggerating because I just didn't want people to take photos of me. I was very uncomfortable with it. Like,
You really pulled back.
yeah, like I really pulled back. Like, I like went full hermit mode. I would like avoid mirrors, you name it. Like, I would just wear like hoodies and sweats, like whatever I could to cover myself. And up to that point, like, obviously I understood I was uncomfortable with myself physically, but I couldn't really, like, if someone were to ask me what's wrong, I really didn't know what to say, because if I said it out loud, I'd sound crazy in my head, you know. And at that age, obviously you care about what people think. Like, everyone does at that age, you know. You're very influenced like at that age.
And what a beautiful safe space that we live in now versus where it was when, I mean, you're still relatively young, but like, we're just getting to a place where like my daughter's generation, it's very safe. It's very, you know what I'm saying? And even it's just different. And it's, I can't imagine like coming out and being, especially having those feelings then when it was a lot less talked about. It wasn't, now it's very accepted, you know, and other kids are starting to accept it at a young age if somebody's identifying as someone else. And I can't imagine what that was like just in New York, going through that when, you know, 10 years ago.
Yeah, that's another thing. There's a lot more exposure to it now. Like, when I was, again, up to that point, I never was exposed to the word period. Like, and that was like a big thing. I was like, what, like, all I knew was gay. I was like, I don't think this is that. And like, I was always very mature for my age. I was always very self-aware. And I was like, no, this has nothing to do with like me liking girls. Like, this has something to do with just me, like, period, you know. It was just like, I don't want people, specifically girls, to see me as a girl. Like, that makes me really uncomfortable. And it was kind of like the best way I can describe like being transgender before you transition and like come to the realization is, almost feels like you're very third party to your body. Like, you're kind of just going with the flow and you're just trying your best to do what you think your gender is supposed to do. Like, it just doesn't come naturally. Like, it's just, there's this click missing. Like, I would like kind of sit there and be like, girls wear makeup, right? Like, I would literally talk to myself like that. Like, and that's not an exaggeration. I didn't understand certain things. It just didn't come naturally to me. Like, and it just felt like I was trying to do things because I was like, okay, well, this is what normal people do that are girls, right? So I'm gonna do it, I guess. Like, that was the exact kind of like thought process I was in. It wasn't like I was like happy about it, you know. Again, it was almost like I was playing like an RPG video game. I was like, okay, well, this is my character and this is what I'm supposed to do, I guess, you know. And that's the best way I can describe like how it feels like to be transgender if you are trans. And then obviously the clear like just crazy like dysphoria with your body, and like there's just like, it really is like a mental disconnect from your body. And you know, I think it's funny because a lot of people, like, it's hard for them to understand it, or like, and you know, I agree, like, it's become a lot more like, accepting and everything. But I definitely think that there's some people that, you know, still question it. And I always say, well, there is like intersex when people are born with both genitalia. So how's it? And you know, like when you're in the womb, as far as I'm concerned, correct me if I'm wrong, but like, you know, your brain is one of the first things to form, and then your hormones and like your sexual parts are the last. And obviously those are what dictate your gender. So how can you say that it is impossible, that there's some kind of disconnect in, you know, somewhere along the lines? And then to add on top of that, again, my parents were born and raised in Romania. Chernobyl was a thing in Russia. My mom tells me all the time, when she was growing up eating, she would eat her protein and it would literally taste like metal. So, and we all know that like radiation can affect genomes. So there's a lot of different little details and factors that go into it, for at least my case specifically, that, you know, it's like, there's a lot of evidence to point that, yeah, like absolutely, like it's definitely possible. And then I'll kind of come back to this later, but I even went to this acronym. It's called the Acronym Institute. It's in New York City. When I did decide to start transitioning, again, I'm just bringing it up now for a specific reason. And they did a lot of, pretty much because I was so young and I was so like, I was very set that like, I am transgender. And this was such a newer thing. They kind of like were excited by it because they wanted to be like, okay, this is great. Like, this is a good lead. So they took me at the Acronym Institute and they did like some crazy psychoanalysis on me. I was there like for a full week and a half. Like, I had my own room and like they did all this like like not, I don't want to say experiments, so like that kind of sounds like they're like probing me and stuff, or like putting electrics in my like hair and whatever. But it was more so they would like kind of talk to me, watch my body language. They would make me, excuse me, they would make me kind of watch videos, see how I basically like physically responded, emotionally responded, you name it, they probably did it. And they came back and they sat my parents down. They're like, listen, like clearly Alex has the physical markers of a female, but we're being very honest with you and like straightforward with you that every single emotional and physical reaction he's given us has been male. And they've had cis men come in and cis female, and they said Alex shows absolutely no patterns of a female. You know,
Wow.
and yeah,
So crazy. I just got covered in goosebumps.
yeah,
How,
and they said
how
that
old were you, Alex?
when I went to the Acronym Institute, I was 11 years old.
Wow.
Yeah.
Was that scary for you, or was that daunting, or was it almost kind of leaning into your curiosity too, and maybe a bit of excitement to kind of see what would happen, because you're so young to be going through that.
Right. So let me like backpedal a little bit to like kind of, because I just want to bring that up for like just that aspect of it. But yeah, so pretty much the way I realized I was trans, when I tell people, they're like, "Are you serious?" I'm like, "Yes." And this is why I'm such like a big advocate of just like the internet in general, because like again, exposure, it's what connects the world. Like for me, well, honestly, like again, I felt like this all my life. I could just never vocalize it into a clear and coherent sentence. So this was kind of when YouTube was like first becoming a bigger thing. I just was like, again, I was full hermit mode, just like YouTube, video games, whatever, leave me alone. That was me. And I went on I just went on YouTube on the homepage and I saw this trending video, and it was literally titled, like I said, like I'm a transgender. I forgot exactly, but it was like about a transgender man. And I goes like, what is that? Because I just saw gender and I was like, okay. So I clicked it and I started listening to this guy talk and like speak about his experiences. And, it like I started crying because it didn't feel like I related to him. It felt like he related to me. And it felt like finally someone could vocalize everything I've ever felt in my life into like a proper, like, couple sentences.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh my God, like, thank you. Like, this is exactly how I feel. And like, I've always been very emotionally like self-aware of myself, but I was just too young again to like go to someone and explain them like in nicely, like how I felt. But I knew the feeling, and so now someone finally could describe it to me. And honestly, I cried out of excitement because I was like, wow, this is exactly like I can literally just like sit down with my mom and like be like, I'm like, my parents knew something was wrong. Like they asked me like so many times, like, do you want to see a therapist? Are you depressed? Like, what's wrong? I'm an only child. Like it was very easy for them to notice something was wrong. I was the only kid in the house. And I remember I told my mom first because at this point I was honestly closest to my mom because I really didn't go like out much, that wasn't something I did. So I kind of just sat her down and I was just like, hey mom, like I just peeled the band-aid off. I was like, I think I'm transgender. And my mom having absolutely no previous experience with the topic at all, she just kind of looked at me and she was like, transgender? And I'm like, yes. And, I remember this conversation very clearly because like this just like goes to show like how amazing my parents are. Um, oh, so like this kind of goes to show how amazing my parents are. She kind of just looked at me and she was like, honey, like, I don't know what you're talking about, but like, regardless, like, I love you. We'll like go through it together. Like, we'll figure it out together. Like, like, I'm happy you told me, like, let me go, like, look it up, see what it means. Like, and I'll come back to you. And then she did that exactly. She told my dad. And then from there, she was like, okay, so you feel like a boy? And I said, yes, like, I'm a boy. And she said, well, I love you either way. And if you think you're a boy, then I love my son. And it took her a while to get used to like getting, because all my life she called me as a she. I was always Alex, like that. I was my full legal name used to be Alexandra, but no one ever called me that. It was always just Alex. So that wasn't hard, but she really made like such an effort from like the start just to call me like he and like him. And it was in a time that like again, this was the start of like when like, you know, just the whole idea of transgender was a thing. And on top of that, she came from a country that was like third world and literally communist for quite a period of time. So I think that just kind of goes to show what kind of people my parents are, you know, with that kind of background. And you know, they always like tell me, like, it's hard for me like not to get emotional because like I'm very aware of like I would not be where I am without them. And that's why I'm so motivated in bodybuilding, because like not like I'm a very lucky case. I'm like there's a lot of people that are literally like thrown out of their houses for this, and like I feel like it's my it's like my duty to like, you know, I was given this, like this was a gift. Like it's up to me to like, you know, live my life to its potential. Like that's what my parents want for me, you know, that's why they love me. So that's why like I'm so motivated all the time, because like I always reflect on my life and like I'm very grateful. So yeah, sorry, it's like very hard for me like to like not get like a little bit emotional.
No, I'm
I'm
getting emotional. So
I'm getting emotional, and I only cry dust.
Yeah.
Like I'm just like,
I would wish that everybody had that experience that you did. And I know from what I know, they don't. And I think that makes me really sad. It makes me so grateful for you. And I would just wish that for everybody, you know, that everybody would be so accepting and so loving and so receptive.
Yeah, and you know, like all my life, like like I really believe everything starts from childhood, like the way you were like raised. Like I believe a lot of problems in this world could be solved if we started in the household and like childhood and how someone's brought up. Because all my life, like another reason why I'm so like determined and motivated is because my parents never put me down all my life. Like even if in their head I said something that sounded kind of crazy, they always supported it and they motivated me. And they said, you know what, if you think you can do it, then do it. Like if you're willing to put in the work, go for it. They never shut any of my ideas down, like no matter how crazy and like large they were, you know. And that's like it really like made a difference in my life. And like again, like I'm just so grateful because all my life, like no matter what, they supported me. They never felt like it never made me feel like how I felt or like my thoughts and opinions were insignificant or like stupid. And that's so important. Like, you know, like, and like if I'm ever a parent, like I wish I could be like a third of like what my parents were for me. Like unbelievable. Yeah.
I can tell already.
Yeah. So yeah, so pretty much after I told my parents at such a young age, and again, they took it seriously. They took me seriously. That's when we went to the Acronym Institute. And then the reason we did that is because I was so young, and honestly, I was a little like, what if this is just like a weird hormonal phase? I don't know. Like I was only transgender. I didn't know anyone else that was kind of going through the same thing. So yeah, I wanted to go to the Acronym Institute and get another opinion. Like absolutely. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. It's not even self-doubt. It's just like if this, you know, they're psychoanalysts, this is all they do, like is just like, you know, under the age of 18, like transgender issues, stuff like that. So we went, and like I said, I stayed there for a while. They just drilled me like all day. They'd give me breaks, and then we go and like we touched. They would talk to me only, talk to me and my mom together. They would take me out of room, see how my parents' dynamic were together without me, with me, the dynamic between my dad and me, that my dad and I, like they really just were looking at everything, because they explained to us later they wanted to see like, okay, is there a weird dynamic between my parents? Is this a result of me trying to overcompensate for a lack of a fatherly figure in the household? Like they really kind of went through every scenario possible to see if this was like externally influenced. And they're like, no, like no matter what the scenario is or position, Alex acts the exact same way. And it's in like, if not the most like textbook male pattern there is, to and like my response, like my emotional and physical response to things. So from there, they recommended me to multiple endocrinologists, surgeons for the future. Again, I was very young, so the surgeon was like kind of like for future reference, because at that time you could only get top surgery at 16, which I think is valid. Like I think that's a good age where you're old enough, you know, that if you still feel the same way, you can go for it. And I did. I literally like the day I turned 16, I made my appointment. And the day I started, so pretty much they put the, and this is another misconception. People assume that if you claim transgender at such a young age, you're like, yeah, sure, no problem. Here's testosterone, or here's estrogen, but that's not how it works. They, first off, like I said, you either need to get 2 valid therapist letters or do what I did, which is go to like an institute, like the acronyms, and get like a thumbs up. Either or. So you either need to like, and when I say a therapist, I mean like you need to be with them for like a year. So that means 2 years because it's 2 separate notes. So yeah. So either that or the institute. And then from there, the endocrinologist needs to see you. He or she also does blood work, sees your levels. Like it's a process.
Yeah.
And then even from there, if you're under the age of 16, they do not put you on testosterone or estrogen because they're obviously lifelong effects that are, especially testosterone, irreversible. Like your voice drops, it's done. It's not going back up if you want to go back up. So the way they did it is they put you on a hormone blocker. So I went on a hormone blocker called Lupron. So pretty much it would halt my puberty. But if for some reason I decided, obviously I didn't, but first, like that 0.2% chance that I was like, wait, no, like I'm a female. The minute I came off, the effects would slowly reverse and I would start going through puberty just a little bit late. So it was like a last safety net cushion to kind of just let me breathe, grow up, mature a little bit, reflect. And if I still felt the same way when I was 16, I could proceed with the full transition.
And they were
So
able to put you on that before you started puberty, right?
yeah, I never went through female puberty because I transitioned so young. I
Mhm.
went through like probably like I really didn't.
Fair.
I had
Yeah.
I had no breast development. I never had a period. My voice was still like not even feminine. It was just like a kid's voice.
Mhm.
And that was, that helped a lot too, because that's why I really don't have like scars, because my top surgery was almost like a gynoplasty for a guy. Like they just kind of took out some fat tissue. They made 2 little small incisions in my torso on the sides, sucked out the fat, repositioned the nipples, and that was about it. And that's pretty much what they do with guys with gynoplasty, because naturally, like when you have like gyno, like, like they'll like remove the tissue underneath the nipples. So that's why I don't have any scars either. So that's why I say like it's in my opinion, if someone truly is transgender, the younger they do it, the better, because it's gonna be such a smoother transition. And again, there's things in place to
Yeah.
make sure that if they did change their mind, that the effects are reversible if they decide to transition before this age of 16.
It's like years. It's like years in
Here,
place. So
yeah,
it's not like, just a couple months, 3 months, take them home and see what you think. It's years.
right. And at the time, I honestly hated it. I was ready. I was like, just put me on testosterone. I was immature. I didn't understand that it was for me. And then, when looking back, I mean, obviously, I didn't change my mind, but I think that it's a great way to go and handle it. And I totally agree with it. So yeah, that's pretty much my like transition story, like from the actual like transitioning aspect of it. But obviously, like something like that really shapes, like I had to grow up very young. I had to kind of understand things and look at things from a perspective that most kids don't really have to, because you don't have to really think about it. um Even like I understand body language very well. Like that's one thing for sure. There's just certain little like ticks that guys and girls do that are different. Because I wanted to pass, like my big thing when I first transitioned is I wanted to pass as a guy to the best of my abilities. So I did so much research on what I could possibly do, because testosterone takes time to work. Like I didn't have a beard like 2 months coming into like testosterone. That took a long time. It pretty much is like any guy going through puberty. Like a lot of guys, when you first start puberty, they're kind of feminine, but I was impatient. So I was like, well, I'm going to do whatever I can to like look more boyish. So I learned a lot. Like, even it's just like the side profile of a female versus a male, it's different. Men have the eyebrow ridge that sticks out a little bit. Female more like kind of flat. Females' eyebrows typically are a little bit more spaced apart than a male's. There's just so many little things between cis men and cis female that, like, again, I just understand for obvious reasons. Um, but yeah, again, like just from an emotional aspect, I really had to mature and grow up at a much faster pace. And in some ways it sucks, but in some ways I'm really grateful for it. Um, because again, like I think everything in life does happen for a reason, and I'm very happy with my life now. So I wouldn't really take anything back.
Do you mind me asking, how was that for you? Because you were young and you were in school and like middle school and high school during this. And I know my middle school and high school, like people could be brutal. So how was that for you in going through this? Like, was, people accepting? How were your teachers,
So it's and that's a funny thing because I would say middle school was definitely worse than high school. And looking back, it's funny because like I definitely got like shit from people in middle school, like especially um honestly, especially the girls. Like you would think it's the guys, but for me it was the girls.
girls are
Um
brutal?
yeah, in middle school it was mostly the girls kind of like picking at me, or like I guess they would try and like I remember there was this one time that like someone like kind of like poked me on the line to just to like talk, like they kind of like they expressed themselves as if they just wanted to start a conversation with me, but in actuality they were just trying to make me talk because like they wanted to hear my voice in comparison to what I looked like, because it's still like high pitched, kind of like stupid shit like that.
Little
I was
cunts.
never. Hmm?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Especially
Little cunts.
Yeah, like stuff like just stuff like that, like stupid shit. Like I never was physically like pushed or like anything. It was just like small little things to try and get at me. And it was never like it wasn't like a big group of people. It was just like a couple of people here and there. And honestly, again, like I'm lucky because all my life my parents instilled this like self-belief and confidence in me and my own decisions. And they would just tell me like, listen, Alex, like it's just a maturity thing. Like like, and I kind of looked like it was weird. Like I kind of didn't even take it too personally. I was just like, all right, well, like it's a maturity thing, you know.
it's their own insecurity.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's funny because like like I overall, again, even though I got a little bit of shit in middle school, by high school, anyone that did give me shit, like I remember vividly, like they would come to me and be like, listen, I am so sorry. Like that was fucked up. And I'm like, it's okay, like no problem. And like I was like, listen, like I'm an open book. Like if you ever have any questions, like please feel free to ask me. Like I'm not gonna ever be insulted or offended by any questions. And that's how I've always approached my transition. Like I never got mad if someone like by accident called me she at first. Like I understood. I was very understanding of everyone and everything. I just didn't take myself too seriously, I guess. And I always kind of looked at it like, let's say like a scenario like you fall, right? And you have food in your hands and you get it all over yourself. You can either like get up, act super embarrassed, and then people will be like, yeah, that's kind of embarrassing. Or you can get up and laugh about it and people are gonna laugh with you. So
Yeah.
I kind of always took my transition the same way. I never took myself too seriously. And I was like, listen, guys, like, you can ask me questions. Like, it's no biggie. Like, if they slipped when I first transitioned, I'm like, it's cool. Don't worry. Like, I never got like aggressive about it because I didn't want people to think I've never been like that. Like, you know, I'm a very calm, collected person overall. Um, and you know, when like people did come up to me and like ask me questions, and at first they were a little bit hesitant because like they didn't want to offend me. And I was like, no, like just ask me, because I think especially I was the only transgender in my middle school and high school. So like obviously like people were curious to ask me, even teachers, like they would ask me questions. They'd be like, okay, so like in this scenario, what would you like me to do? And you know, I always really appreciate it, but they felt comfortable because I was never really aggressive about it. Um, I'm very lucky. I like by middle school and high school, I live in Stony Brook. It's a very good area on Long Island. So like the actual school system is very good. So I actually like I got the chance to sit down with the principal in both the middle school and high school and like talk to them. By high school though, honestly, I was already like really masculine. Like everyone knew me.
Yeah.
But like middle school, like they kind of like the whole bathroom situation. They were like, okay, like until we can kind of figure this out and solidify it, because there weren't any bathroom like stuff back then. It was different. They were like, listen, Alex, like you can use the nurse's bathroom if that's too embarrassing for you. Like I could use the principal's bathroom. He's like, just go and use it. Like I don't really care. Like you're good.
Wow.
Yeah. So like they were really good about it. They never forced me to use a female's bathroom, because even when I first started transitioning, like I had a very masculine demeanor to me. Like, so like as long as I didn't talk, like you would probably think I was a guy. So it was dangerous for me to walk into the girls' bathroom. I'd probably get like slapped in the face or something, you know? Like I already looked like I didn't act like a girl at all. Um, I was just in the early stages of my transition. So like if I opened my mouth, yeah, it was a little high pitched. But by the time I hit high school, like I really didn't have problems with anyone. I think I had problems with like this one guy. And like I remember like he was just being annoying about it, and like literally like everyone ganged up on him. I was like, guys, I really don't care enough. It's fine. Like it's cool. Like just don't even give him the satisfaction of making it a big deal, you know, kind of thing.
Yeah.
So like overall, even in like school, it was like everyone was really good about it. And honestly, like I remember in high school specifically, because middle school again, people were like too shy and nervous to do like the crazy shit I did. But in high school, like a lot of people started coming out as whatever, like bi, gay, lesbian, whatever. But I was still the only trans guy. But and they came up to me and they literally told me like, listen, Alex, like I just want to let you know, like you kind of inspired me to like be more comfortable with myself. And like that really meant a lot to me because like again, I always went about it very nonchalant because I wanted to show people it's really not a big deal. Like,
Yeah.
you know, it really isn't, like who cares? Um,
Right.
like that was kind of the attitude had about it. Like I didn't want to make a black sheep out of myself. Like it's just like who cares? You know, like being transgender is just a detail about myself. Like there's so much more to me than just that, you know? And like that's why when people ask me, like I don't like saying I'm a trans bodybuilder. That's bullshit. Like I'm a bodybuilder. I just happen to be trans, you know? Like that's how I like to say it.
I
You
want
know,
to kind of transition to, like, you brought it up, like how did you get into bodybuilding? Like what was the first, like where did you see it? Where did you like what was your first connection, and when did you feel called? Like I know, like we're gonna see you up on that IFBB stage one day, and like I'll be emotional.
That's so soon. Like,
We'll all be crying watching from COVID channel number 9, you know, like, oh my God, you know, but
yeah.
how did that start for you? We know
So
where it's gonna end. How did it start?
yeah.
yeah, so pretty much again, like my thing was I'm very type A personality. I'm just gonna put it out there. So I was like, okay, what do I have to do to look more guyish, like boyish? Just I'll do it, whatever. Like, you know, whatever it is. Do I have to work out? And then I was like, yeah, you know, I feel like working out would probably help, right? Like I was just like, that's common sense. Like, you know, when we work out, like, I don't know, lateral raises, that's a thing, right? Before bodybuilding, I was big into music. I was in my school's competitive jazz band. I was the drummer. I was in my school's competitive a cappella group. I was like all involved in music. So I was never like fat or like out of shape. I was just skinny, like really skinny. I was like 105 pounds wet because I think I would eat like very sporadically, and like I honestly ate like garbage. I would eat like Doritos, or like I think like one of my favorite like if you told my parents like early high school, middle school that I would be a bodybuilder, they'd be like, you sure? Because my diet was trash. I would eat like hot dogs with like mac and cheese. Like I would literally cut up hot dogs, put in
What
mac and
is wrong
cheese.
with hot dogs and mac and cheese? I'm just kidding. I'm kidding.
Talk
Like
about that.
All my clients, I'm kidding.
like I would eat, and then like I would eat really bad. But I always had like I'm an ecto for sure. Like I always had a really fast metabolism, so I got away with it. And
Yeah,
on
me.
top of it, like I would drum all day. Because at that point, again, I kind of went back to being extroverted once I felt more comfortable with myself. So I was always like on my drums. I was involved in like a lot of performance arts, even outside of school. So like that's a lot of cardio. Like I did like metal drumming too. So like that's a lot of double pedal. You know, my calves were honestly developed, like not gonna lie. But you know, I was just one of those things, like a very typical guy. Like I just want to look more masculine, like I want to be attractive, like, you know, it was just like the typical thing at first. But I'm a very all or nothing kind of personality. So I started just go like I was like, okay, didn't have a driver's license. I kind of decided in 11th grade to start this up. That's like the age is like, okay, I had my top surgery. I was like, I can take my shirt off. I don't want to look like this when I go to the beach. I don't want to look like this if I wear a tank top. I want to look a little like have a little bit more meat on me, you know? So I just started going to the school gym in my high school with my friend Jared for math class. We had math last period every day. I remember looking up what's good pre-workout food and they said rice cakes. So we both bought like so many rice cakes and we were like slamming them in our mouths. The teacher gets so pissed at us because it was loud. Like obviously they're crunchy. And like I personally didn't care. So I would just like whip out like a thing of peanut butter, like a pack of rice cakes, and like I just like I was like, oh, protein shakes, right? Like that's what you do. So I protein shake, whatever. And we'd eat and then we'd go work out in the gym in the high school. It was funny because like primarily the like football players use that gym, or like the whatever sports kids, and we were like just like these scrawny little music kids like hopping in like, oh, we're gonna join you guys. And honestly, like by that age again, like my school was really good. Like they were really nice to us. Like I kind of like would pick their brains and like ask them like, oh, like why do you do that? And like, I right away honestly started like looking into it. I was like, well, I'm not gonna just like go in there with like not knowing what I'm doing. Like, let me look up like how am I supposed to train? Like, what am I supposed to eat? And like I would say I got into it really quickly. Um, I started watching YouTubers. I honestly never even went through the phase of like watching I don't know, like lifestyle people. I honestly just started watching competitors immediately, like different competitors like Regan Grimes and stuff on YouTube and
Yeah.
stuff. Like I was just like, okay, well, these guys definitely know what they're doing, so I'm gonna watch them. So I just kind of like picked up a lot of them. I started watching a lot of John Meadows, honestly. He was like probably like one of the
100%.
first guys like I got into, like John Meadows. I remember T Nation. I
Yeah.
would just read all his articles and stuff. And like, like it was really sad for me when he passed because like he was definitely like one of the first like people that actually knew what they're talking about that I listened to. Like the whole like leg push pull, like I got into that like senior year. And he was definitely like one of like the bigger influences for me. As and like honestly, he was probably like the person that was like, you know what, like he's like such an amazing person. Like I want to coach one day. Like I want to help people like the way he helps like people. So that yeah. So I started watching John, different bodybuilders, and I got into it really fast. And I started honestly like my back. I remember like I saw a photo on my phone. I was just looking through my Google photos, and I was like, what the hell? Like my back like looks actually like kind of decent. Like my back and my legs definitely are genetically like my good spots. So I just really got into it. I was just like, screw it. Like if I'm gonna do it right. So I did that. Eventually, once I got my permit and my junior's license, I started going to like an LA Fitness near my house. Because that's where like my parents felt comfortable with me going because it was only like a 15-minute drive. And then from there, the more I started getting into competitors, I started learning about their coaches. And then from there, I learned about Bev's gym, like Bev Francis Powerhouse Gym.
Yeah.
And I like
You train there a lot, right?
I train there every day. Pretty
Yeah.
much. That's my gym. And I was like, I was like, wait, like Sadiq there, or Rosh goes there, like Victor Martinez, like wait, like Kai Green, like, and I didn't realize it was on Long Island. And when the minute I did, I remember calling Jared and be like, Jared, Bev's is 45 minutes away. And he's like, okay, let's go. And senior year, I had a half day because I finished my credits early. So every day after like fifth period, I would just drive. Honestly, for the first couple months, I did not tell my parents I was like hiking 45 minutes away to like Bev's. They just thought I was going to Life Fitness and then like going to get food or something with Jared after. But every single day, I would just go to Bev's. And that's when I really got into it. Like I had honestly no intentions of like competing until I started going to Bev's. Because I kind of was under the impression that I couldn't. I was like, well, I don't know how that would work. So I'm just gonna do this for myself. I was happy with it. I was happy. I wasn't upset about it. I was like, it is what it is. Like I can do it for myself, no problem. But I started going there and like, the owners of the gym are Steve and Bev. And Steve Weinberger is pretty much like he runs the NPC and
Yeah.
he's a head judge of Olympia. He has a big say in this stuff. And when I realized that, I took upon the opportunity because more and more people were like, Alex, like, have you ever like considered competing? Like, like you're putting on, like you make a lot of progress really fast. And at this point is kind of when I just went up to them and I was like, hey, like I've been coming at this point, I was about to graduate senior year. And I kind of just went up to Steve and Bev. I was like, hey, like, I'd just like to formally introduce myself. At this point, we've had many casual conversations. I was a regular. I was like, I just want to formally introduce myself. My name is Alex Tulinka. At the time I was 18. I'm 18 years old. You know, I'm a transgender man, and I'm really interested in competing. I just wanted to ask, like, is that possible? Like, I don't want to waste my time like dieting and getting like peeled to the bone if I'm gonna be like turned around like right at the end at the finish line. And they kind of just looked at me, and I guess they weren't ever really asked that question face to face yet. And I kind of like put them on the spot, and I didn't mean to, but I was just like, you know, it is what it is. Like, I'm a very like upfront person. And either like, no, honestly, I mean, they're like, I mean, for the men specifically, like, you know, it's not hormone regulated. So I don't think really there should be a problem. And I was like, okay. So from there, I honestly just was like, okay. So that was like, done deal. Okay, like, I'll do it. Screw it. So, and this is like a big thing is like this whole time when I decided to compete, I wasn't like, oh, but I'm trans. Like, I'm not gonna do well. I was like, no, I'm gonna fucking do this. Like, I don't care. Like, you know, who cares? Like,
let's fucking go.
right. Like, that was my mentality. I was like, let's fucking go. Like, you know, like I know I train hard. I know like I have really good discipline. I have the mentality down. Like, I think physically I can get there. Like, I just need to get shredded, you know? And I was like, I just need a really good coach. Like, I want a coach that's gonna like give it to me. And Jason was the coach that I decided to go with. Going out, like, you know, I did my research. I looked around. And I don't know, Jason just kind of stuck out to me. And I kind of just reached out, and I was like, hey, like, this is me. I want to compete. This is what I look like. I'm going to tell you right now up front, I am trans. Like, if that's a personal issue, I respect that. I will go my separate way. If you don't care, very cool. I want to do this, you know? And Jason honestly he hopped on the opportunity like immediately. I think he emailed me back within like an hour, because of course Jason is always like that. But like, he emailed me back like, I think in like 12 minutes, and he was like, what show? And I was like, this show. And he was like, okay, like, I want to do this with you. He's like, he told me up front, he's like, I don't have another trans client, I'll be honest with you. But he was like, him being very humble was like, well, I do really well by my girls and I do really well by my guys. So you're kind of just in the middle. So we can work with that. I was like,
that is so
I fucking love Jason.
he was like, well, I figure you're just somewhere in the middle, right? So we can work with that. That's cool. Like, you know, this is like, if for him, it was almost like fun, like, you know.
Oh, yeah.
Like, you know, because he like, it was a challenge for him. And I guess like he wasn't really challenged like that in a while. So he was like, okay, like, this is new for me. I've kind of been doing this for a while. And he kind of like, he told me later down the road, like, you know, I've like, by the time he reached out to me, like, I was already like a matured coach in the industry. Like, I was kind of like looking for something new and exciting. And like, you were that for me, you know, like a trans guy, like young and like ready to like rock and roll, like, you know, and he liked that. So he jumped upon it. And then from there, like, we just started prepping me. And he was just like, listen, like, you're not going to be the biggest on stage. I'm like, I'm aware, like, not hurting my feelings. Didn't think I would be. And he's like, so we just have to get you really peeled. And I'm like, okay. And we definitely did that. I remember like, I was like 3 weeks out or something. And I was like, I think my diet consisted of like 3 ounces of turkey breast and baby spinach. And I think I got like 20 grams of oats post-workout or something like that. Yeah.
You're like counting every flake, right?
Oh, I would do specifically 30 grams of baby spinach. No
Oh,
more
yeah.
than that.
You weigh your
All
spinach,
the
yeah.
girls on this podcast,
Like, I weighed everything. Like,
We
like,
relate.
yeah. If he says, you know, 20 grams of oats, that means it's like 19.5.
Oh,
If you put one more flake over and it's, you know, 21, nope,
Yeah.
that's not happening.
I will always run under than over.
Yeah.
And every cardio gets an extra minute or two.
yeah. No, like, I was.
You know what I mean? I'm always like, well, I'll just do 22.
I have to finish on an odd number, just so everybody knows it has to be an odd number.
Oh, dude, there's nothing quite as obsessive as you know, prep. And then you bring it into like a month before peak week where we're tracking sodium. And I'm like, you know.
Oh, and I would like literally, I would eat and I'd be like, okay. And I would set my alarm exactly 3 hours to eat my next meal. Like, I remember being like, okay, you think we're ready? He's like, you have 10 pounds left. I'm like, from where? My fucking brain? Like, I was like, no.
Suck it out of your brain, Alex, now. And I know if he said that, you'd be like, okay, I'm looking on the internet.
Yeah, and I was like, okay. In my head, I was like, holy shit, you know. But I ended up like I did really well at that show. I did first in teens, first in juniors, and first in novice, and that was my first show. And I did classic physique. It was my first show. I was the youngest on the stage. I remember Bev and Steve were both there, and I was just wearing this like really oversized what was I wearing? I was wearing a Guns N' Roses shirt, and it was like so big on me, and I looked so dead, and they were like, this is your first show, right? I'm like, uh-huh. And like I had like the death skull face. They're like, holy shit. Like I was really gone at that point, I remember, but I placed really well at my first show. And for me, like I guess the way I did, like that was like kind of my like, yes, you like you're built for this, you can do it. Like that was kind of like the solidifying, like you're meant for this, you know, like it's not lunacy, like you can do it. Like if I can do that at 18, like, you know, fuck like trans or not trans, like I want to do this. And then from there, like we were kind of like, okay, like, you know, like obviously like what competitor doesn't want to get their pro card and make the Olympia? That's the whole point. You're competitive, right? Like who's just like, oh well, like I just want to step on an NPC stage. Like what? No.
I just on a competitor today too, and I was like, we've got to grow for a little bit. She wants to compete, and I was like, don't waste your money to go up there for a participation award. It's a lot of fucking money. It's a lot of lost relationships for a small time. It's a lot to give up to go up, and you want to go up there and feel like you belong.
Yes.
Yeah, like you want to like go up there and be like, I did that, you know, like you that when you like reflect that you didn't leave any stones unturned, you know. And so, and then from there we kind of just regrouped. I followed my reverse like perfectly. I remember he was like reverse, and I was like, okay, like I really was monkey say monkey say, like monkey say monkey do with him back then, because I was still kind of learning the science and everything behind him. And I like put all my like trust and faith into Jason. So I was like, okay, Jason, you got it. And then as I got older, like I remember when I first started working with him, I'd ask him so many questions. God bless him. I don't know how he had any patience with me. I would send him like small little paragraphs of like, so like why this and like why this here. And I remember he'd always just be like, man, you'd be such a great coach. Like you asked, yes, so many questions, but I would ask the good questions, not like the stupid questions, like, you know, the more like analytical questions.
I feel like always there's almost no stupid question if you're honestly trying to learn. The stupid question is when you're challenging your coach and you're, rather than just saying, I don't trust this process, you're like, well, why would, you know what I mean? It's like that I think as a coach, and I think you probably know this now, like I do have clients that are like, what's a digestive enzyme? And I'm like, oh yeah, most people don't know this. You know what I mean? It's like, it's crazy how our job is like, as a coach, it's really about educating, and education drives compliance.
Right.
I can tell you what to do, but if you're not bought in, you ain't doing it.
And I always tell my clients, like, not only do you, like, there's an educational aspect to coaching, and that is priceless. Like you should come out of this coaching almost being able to do it yourself. And the reason why you only need me is because you get so into your head that you need that third party to kind of pull you back and keep you grounded and leveled, you know. But at the end of the day, there is an educational aspect and process to it that it's that's what you're paying for, really, at the end of the day. It's enlightenment, you know. It's like awareness, and like you learn your body, and you have someone like you know, your coach only knows you as much as you know yourself, almost, because it's all feedback. It's a teamwork, like it's a bouncing back and forth. And I always did that with Jason, and I always did macro based everything with Jason, because I kind of knew quickly and I learned on my own. But I'd always ask him questions like, what if I did like a medium chain before I worked out because it burns like a carb? And like I would ask him when I was like just starting, and he was like, you know, you'd be a good coach in the long run. Like you kind of think the right way. Like, I was very detail oriented. I was like, I don't like, especially for my prep, I was like, I just want to win. I want to do the most optimal thing I can possibly do. I don't care, whatever it is, like, you know, let me know, I will do it. And I would ask him a lot of questions and stuff. And it's just funny because now I am a coach at Scooby Prep, because I remember like for the first 2 years I worked with him, like he would like, that was his go-to with me. He'd be like, you know, he'd be a really good coach, right? Because I'd always send him so many questions like that. So because I was always like, I liked learning about it. And this is a big thing now looking back and reflecting, I didn't realize it at the time, but for me, I think another reason why I got into bodybuilding so fast and so quickly was because I feel like for the first time in my life, I felt like total control over my body, because up to that point, I really didn't feel like I was in control of my body.
Yeah.
And bodybuilding kind of gave me that outlet to be like, you know what, whatever the hell you want to look like, you can do it if you put the time and effort into it, and that's why I got so quickly and learned I learned the science of it. It was like, wow, like I finally, for once, another thing is I started looking at my body, I almost like genderless. Like I just looked at it in like almost like an anatomical perspective, like a bodybuilder. I saw myself as like, okay, your traps, your hams, your glutes, your whatever, delts, side, front, rear. Like almost took the gender out of my body. So like it's almost like I transitioned and I put so much emphasis on gender in my life. And now it's like I look at my body like totally different. Like I don't even look at the gender aspect of it. Like I honestly like I forget I'm trans all the time. Like I'm like, oh yeah, like it's just something that was even like bodybuilding really kind of like almost like flipped it upside down for me like that. And I think it's really interesting because I came into bodybuilding so obsessed with my gender and like I gotta look more like a guy. I gotta be more boyish to a point where it's like I don't even like look at myself like that at all.
I think it's interesting how we always have to put names and titles, and we have to put people in boxes and all those. And I think you really touched on something really awesome and I think that I know there's a lot of stuff on like social media that's done this where they show kids, and kids, they don't see the differences in people's color or, what's going on, with their gender or their different religion. And I think that that's a really beautiful thing. And I think it's really cool too, is when you have an adult like yourself who also sees people like that. I know the other, I know Sonia and Sarah, myself, that's how we see people, everyone should be treated the same. And I think it's really cool, number one, that you're out there as a coach doing that as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, everything's very fluid, and like you can't like, and that's another thing. Like I feel like, even like I don't even really associate myself with the LGBT community that much. Like I just more associate myself with the bodybuilding community. I feel like I relate more to bodybuilders than the LGBT community, honestly, I think like, the whole labeling is kind of very therapeutic for when you're first going through something because it almost feels like it's like an inclusive thing. Like, oh, like you have like you feel like you belong somewhere. But once you're able to kind of like mature and just feel really comfortable with yourself, you don't really need that anymore,
Yeah,
Right.
definitely.
Well, I'm so glad you came on and talked to us. It's been like, I'm a talker, you guys already know, but like rarely am I just like in awe. And I feel like I could honestly listen to you talk about just like your journey and like, there's actually so many things I wanted to ask you about, like your relationship and what it's like coaching and like all these kinds of things. But it's like, just your story has just been so incredible and empowering. And even like obviously like, I'm not trans, but like just in just your day-to-day life of like overcoming objectives and stuff like that. Like you just paint such a tranquil, but like, I can just say like a strong, heroic energy about you that just makes like this incredible being. And I'm just glad that you got to come on and share your story. And I hope that the people listening just kind of can absorb that just from, hearing your voice and hearing, what basically you got to go through at such a young age to give you all the tools that you have right now to help people in their life, trans, non-trans, whatever, just speak life into people's dreams. And it's fucking incredible.
Thank you. And listen, like if you guys have any like last minute, like I don't know how long you guys usually go for this, but if there's anything like topics I didn't touch upon like at all, like you said, relationships, if you want to ask me quickly, just for the fun of it, I don't know. Go for it.
I'll let y'all go. Like you've answered every single. I wrote my questions and like I was like, you answered all of them.
Yeah, like you answered all of them. I stalked your Instagram, so I just want to say Lexi's super cute, and I want to know, how did you guys meet?
So I've known her since I was actually 13, 14.
Okay.
My first official like girlfriend, she was her best friend. And it's funny because like Lexi actually identifies as lesbian and she was attracted to my girlfriend at the time when I dated her. And now, yeah, like years later, we're dating. So I've known her for a very long time, but she moved off of Long Island at 17, and that's why like we kind of like not grew apart, but like physically couldn't like say, hey, what's up?
Yeah.
She always like, you know, if people ask her, like she obviously sees me as a guy. It's like it's not like it's not like she looks at me as a girl, but whenever people ask her, she always just says that like, you know, she kind of was always attracted to my like who I was and like the soul, like, you know, like regardless of my gender. So she says like, you know, she still feels the same way, like, you know, like for her, she and like it's weird, and that this is going back to the whole like aspect of fluid. You know, no one's like black and white like that, you know. I don't believe in that, you know, and like my relationship is a great example of that. Like, you know, everything's very fluid in life. So even though she identifies herself as a specific way, and I will always respect that, and like honestly, it doesn't bother me in the slightest. Like she always, if people ask her, she's like, absolutely, I'm attracted to him physically. But the reason why I'm attracted to him physically is because I'm really attracted to his soul and who he is. And that's what makes me attracted to him physically. You know,
That's what every relationship should have.
right. Yeah. And it's funny because like a lot of people are first attracted to me physically because I'm a bodybuilder, and it's like I end up being with a person that like I'll like be like all like flexing and like and she's like, you're so cute. I'm like like she doesn't really care because like for her it's like, you know, like for her it's like she loves me for like the person I am. Like obviously she's attracted me physically, but for her it's even more so the emotional aspect to it. So I just, it's like really ironic. I'm like, God damn it. Like, you know. So she's like, you know, I'll be like doing like whatever, like I'll do like a crazy shoulder press, and she's like, cool. I'm like,
No, not cool.
like, you know.
That's super sweet, honey. You know, my boyfriend's like learning. He's like, are those striations I see? And I'm like, thank you, honey. You know, or he'll be like, I don't know if this fits in my macros. You know, I'm like,
it's funny because the first time I took her to Bev's, my friend Bree was getting ready for a show. She does physique for women, and I just looked at her and I was like, you look fucking disgusting. And my girlfriend looked at me like how could I say that to her? And she was like, thank you so much. And she was like, what is going on right now?
Yeah, that is us.
Yeah, the best compliment ever.
Yes, she was like that. She like I made Bree's day, you know. And she was like, she didn't understand the whole interaction in the slightest. It was hilarious.
Love it. Well, dude, tell our listeners, as I have your Instagram open, where can we find you? Tell them, give us your little spiel. How do they apply for coaching? Where can they find you?
Absolutely. So my Instagram is Tulinka. If you're interested in coaching, you can visit scoobyprep.com. Go under my name, Alex Tulinka. I also have a YouTube. I make it very easy for you guys. Also, Alex Tulinka. I also have what's it called? A TikTok. I just started up like a week ago. So we're like at 10K. Also, Alex Tulinka. Making it very easy for everyone.
He's like OnlyFans, also Alex Tulinka.
Yeah. I haven't gotten there yet. I'll let you know. I have to talk to my girlfriend about that first. But those are my main platforms you can follow me at.
Dude, awesome.
Awesome.
Thanks so much. We appreciate having you on.
Yeah, thank you guys so much. It was definitely a pleasure.
All right, guys. Well, stay safe in that traffic, and we'll talk to you, or we'll hear you. God, I fucked it up. Someone else take it over.
We'll see you on the gram.
Yeah.
Guys, if you like this, make sure you tag us and share it up on your stories.
Yeah. Leave a review too. Let us know. Only leave a review if you're gonna be like nice. Don't be an asshole.
On that note.
Okay. Bye.